Hello everybody, Jim here, coming to you on this fine August evening right now. Oddly enough, I do not have a beer in my hand, nor do I have a cup of coffee. I have neither of those things, neither alcohol nor caffeine right now, which is odd for when I record one of these things, because usually when I feel like sitting down and talking like this, I have either some alcohol with me or some coffee, but not today. Although I did drink my fair share of coffee already today, so I've still got some residual caffeination going on. So hopefully try to keep the energy up. Although my energy levels are never terribly high, isn't that right? I'm not exactly a high tempo kind of guy. Anyway. Today's video, I wanted to talk about something that I think, asking the question, what's keeping me in Japan? The surface level answer is, I think, pretty obvious to most people that, they watch my YouTube videos and they see I've got a gaming channel with like 1,000 videos about video games. So, like, the surfaced answer would be, oh, because, you get to indulge your hobby, right? And there's video games everywhere, and you can just play all the video games you want, and that's certainly part of it. It's really nice that I can enjoy that passion and hobby I have for video games, and at the same time share that in the form of YouTube, which is something else that I obviously became very interested in some years ago. And even that's an opportunity to make money, because I make money off of YouTube. Not a lot of money, mind you, but it's something, right? So there's opportunity there, and then just, the ability to have some fun and enjoy my hobby. But there has to be, at least for me, there's got to be more there's got to be more to my life than just enjoying a hobby, just playing video games. Because I guess during my teenage years, that was something that was there was a period there where that was kind of basically my life. Just wake up, play video games, go to sleep, wake up, play video games, and that was it. And it wasn't a very fulfilling life. I didn't have a big social circle as a teenager, but as an adult, I guess I sort of, blossomed a little bit into a little more of a social person. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the reasons why I decide to stay in Japan when there are other options on the table, and there were other options, and I opted against them because there's sort of a perception that, like, if you go to Japan, or someone who chooses to live in Japan, it's gotta, be mostly because, like I said, like, you're indulging hobbies and things like that. You must be some sort of otaku. You must love anime and video games and things like that if you're gonna be staying in a place like Tokyo. And for a lot of people, like, that's like not the case at all. Like, they have no interest in those things, and they can't wait to get the hell out of here. Or they do have an interest in those things, but socially things don't work out, and so they leave. So just some examples of that. Many people know that my first time coming to Japan was when I was in the military, and that was from 2010 to 2014. And there were a lot of people in the military that were stationed here that I worked with that didn't like it here at all, and it's just an assignment, and as soon as it's over, they're leaving. They're off to the next one. And as an example, I worked with a guy who I think he was from Buffalo, New York, but he had a sort of almost like a Jersey Shore way about him. But he had come here. His previous assignment had been in Panama City, Florida, which he, apparently loved, because he would, he's a total dude bro, so he'd get off work and then go down to Panama Beach and hang out and go bird dog some chicks and crush brews, bro. And all that stuff. It was like a perfect lifestyle for him. And then when he came here, he couldn't really, it was just like a different scene, so he couldn't really enjoy the kind of lifestyle that he had become accustomed to. So he, complained pretty routinely that he didn't like it here at all and couldn't wait to get out. And after his 2 years were up, he was gone. And so that's one example. Another example, I think I've talked about it before, was a guy that I met when I had just come back to Japan to start going to college. On the orientation day at the first school I went to, I met a guy and we were having a conversation about what brought us to Japan. And I told him, I'd been here previously in the military, and now I'm, living with my, my long-term girlfriend. We're intending to get married and have kids and stuff. And so he was like, "Oh, cool." And I was like, "What about you?" And he said pretty candidly, "Well, I've always loved anime and video games and stuff, and I just kind of wanted to, experience Japan, see what it was like." And after one semester, he left. He was gone. So even though he had those interests, anime, video games, all that kind of stuff, it wasn't enough to keep him here because of sort of like social ostracization, I guess you could call it, where he was just having a real hard time adjusting to like the language barrier, and he had never been somewhere, I guess, where he didn't quite fit in. So he was feeling very singled out and ostracized, I guess, and that was, too much for him, so he was gone too. So those are two opposite ends of the spectrum. Someone who came here who had no interest in living in Japan at all, did not like it and left because he had no motivations to stay here, and then someone who came who had a previous interest in Japanese culture, or at least Japanese pop culture, and he also didn't like it, and he also left. And so here I am. I've been here for, something like 10 years, and I'm saying that my interest in video games isn't, that by itself isn't enough to keep me here, because I've met a few people who live out here like that, where that's kind of Japanese and foreign, that's really all they do, is just they get lost in their hobby of playing games, and they don't have very much of a social life, and they don't, when you hang out with them, they don't seem terribly happy, I'll put it that way. I have an ex, just as an example, where she was also like that kind of person that was really into her video games and her anime and stuff, but just social skills were totally lacking, and most of the time she was not terribly happy. So one of the things that keeps me here is that I do have a social circle. I've managed to build a nice like circle of friends for myself, people that I can, when I feel like it, I can message them or call them or say, "Hey, do you want to meet up and go hang out and go do something," or whatever. I've managed to maintain that. Without that, I don't think I could stay here, even though I like the city very much. There's lots to do and see and everything like that. If I didn't have like a social motivation to go and do those things, like there's lots of restaurants, but you really just want to sit around eating by yourself. Don't you want to go with your friends or a girlfriend? Lots of bars, but you're gonna go to the bar and sit in the corner? No, you're gonna want to go and like socialize and talk to people. So if there wasn't that aspect, I don't know if I could stay here. I might have to opt to like, see, that's another thing that's a motivation to stay, is because where else am I gonna go? Like I could go home. Like that was something I considered like in the past. Like, okay, let me rewind. So when I was in the military, in 2014 was when I got reassigned. I was going to Texas. And at that point, I had been in the military 6 years. So when I finally did get out in 2015, I had been in for just over 7 years. And I had a choice to make at that time, because what a lot of people like to do is you've got a military career and you hang in for your 20 years and you can retire and you have, collect a pension, and then you can go do whatever else you want. But I was looking at it like 20 years, like that's another 13 years from now. And I didn't really have like a great deal of like passion for my work. For me, joining the military and staying in the military was always sort of this kind of situation where I don't know what I want to do with my life right now, so I'm going to do this as sort of a placeholder. And at the time when I found out I was going to be going to Texas, I had been with my girlfriend at the time for about a year. And it was a pretty serious relationship, so we were discussing sort of our options, because long distance, it didn't sound too promising. So we had sort of come to the conclusion, well, one thing I could do is I could go to Texas, do my year there, let my contract expire, and then just get out of the military. Then I'd have my GI Bill benefits. I can, come back here. And at the time, the plan was we're going to live together. I'm going to go and finish school, get a job, and then we'll get married and have kids. And I didn't know what I wanted to do at school either. Because, it just had never dawned on me, even though it should have been staring me right in the face. I had always had a huge interest in film and television, and I was getting more and more interested in, carrying on YouTube and, working with other people doing things, maybe improving the quality of my content, although I don't know how successful I've been at doing that. So the writing should have been on the wall that maybe I should go and study media in one form or another. But at the time, my girlfriend, she had just finished college where she majored in English, and she became an English teacher in the public school system, and her mother had been an English teacher, and so it was just sort of a thing in her family. She was like, well, you're a native English speaker. It's very easy for native speakers to get teaching jobs in Japan, and it's pretty secure. So you should major in English or Japanese, and then after you graduate, you can get a teaching job, and then we'll all be teachers, and we'll all, it'll be, fine and dandy or whatever. And we can get married and have kids and all that. So that was the plan initially. When I came back in 2015, I moved in with my girlfriend out in Kanagawa in a city called Odawara, and I would commute into Tokyo like an hour and a half one way to go to school. And that was the initial plan, was when I finished at Lakeland University and got my AA, I was going to go and major in, Japanese at Temple and get a BA in that, and then get out and start teaching English in the Japanese school system. As many of you may know, that relationship didn't quite work out. We lived together for a year, and it all kind of went to shit. And I was like, you know what? Before this gets any worse, I'm just gonna get out of here. See ya. And I packed up my things and moved into Tokyo in that little apartment I used to live in. That was my college apartment. So at the time, motivation is simple enough. I'm still in school, so I want to, finish my degree. But when that time came, that was right around the time where I'm about to start working towards my BA at Temple. What do I want to major in? And when I really thought about it, I was like, I don't really want to major in Japanese because I have other interests beyond that. I don't even really have an interest in being a teacher. What I really am interested in is media. So I majored in communications instead, and I was having a great time studying film and journalism and broadcasting and other various things like that. And that was really right up my alley. So I actually had a really great time in college. I was very, very invested in loving all the stuff I was learning. And so at the time, that was my main motivator for staying in Japan, even though I was living in a crappy little apartment. I wasn't really making any money, but I was really enjoying school and building a social circle, slowly but surely. I had, having a group of friends that I can hang out with, and also if I want, when I wanted to go out drinking and nobody wanted to go with me, not, an unsocial person. I can go sit in the bar and just strike up a conversation with most people. So that was going good. And then, playing video games and, drinking beer, hanging out. And then, again, being a single guy, again, and being in my late 20s, I started to, play the field a little bit, I was on the prowl. So I was enjoying the single life, meeting women and hanging out, doing the things adults do. So that was nice. And then I start interning for this production company, which was like awesome. Like my whole idea, my whole goal was to, after school, maybe get a job here. Maybe I can start working as a production assistant, move up to being like a producer, because I had friends that worked there and they were producers and went on to work, they were working at like Nissan and stuff like that. And while I was interning there, I was working on stuff that was being published by Allied Press, and I did a little bit of work for like Toshiba. So I was getting some great experience. I was working with some kind of veterans of production, camera operators, a cameraman there, Nabe-san. He'd been a camera operator for like decades, so he was just showing me all this great stuff with cameras and everything. People helping me with like editing and stuff like that. I was learning a lot. But then as, I'm about to graduate, I'm like, hey, I need a job. Can I work here? No, you can't. We don't got any money. And as soon as you leave, we're going to bring in a whole slew of interns. If one intern, because I did a pretty good job while I was there, I guess. So they're like, hey, if one intern can do all that, imagine what like 3 or 4 interns can do. So as soon as I left, they brought in like a small army of interns. So I'm in that position where like, all right, finishing school. At the time, I didn't have like a steady girlfriend or anything. I got a shitty little apartment. I'm not really making very much money. And I can't really have the job I want. What am I gonna do? And I'm looking at it, I kind of looked at it like, put it in perspective. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm not here, where am I? And what am I doing? Because I don't have any like roots in any sort of like major cities in the US or anything. My hometown is a tiny little hometown in Louisiana. And it's one of those things where like, okay, well, I guess if I went home, I could probably, as a veteran, go and get a job at the base and work in the hospital or something. And I was just like thinking about that, like, I don't want to do any of those things. Never had a passion for any of that. Like, it's just, so it was like, I don't even know if it might have been like a false dichotomy where in my mind I was like, okay, it's either this or this. When in reality, there probably were a range of options I could have gone with, but I created that dichotomy in my head. I was like, okay, I can either stay here or go home. I didn't really think about anything else. So I was like, you know what? Let's go on the job hunt. Let's see what we can find. And also at that time, all that time I had spent at school, all the time I'd spent interning at that company, I was learning a little bit more about video production, and I was enjoying it more. And I guess at that time, my YouTube channel started to grow like just a little bit. Like I had some minor hits, like videos getting like 50,000 views, 60,000 here, and things started to pick up steam, and I started to see a little bit of money coming in from that. And I was like, okay, so maybe there's some potential in this. I want to continue to do this. I can produce the kind of content that I produce pretty much only if I'm here in Japan. So there's one motivator. There's opportunity to make some money. And I kind of took the old advice of my girlfriend, where one of the things she sold me on was like, you're a native English speaker. If you're educated and everything, it's really easy to get an English teaching job. That's like what all the foreigners do. So begrudgingly, because I had never had any interest in teaching, to be completely honest, I went and found myself a job teaching at a school, which I still maintain to this day. And I'm happy to say that I actually enjoy my work now. Like, I didn't have any interest in it initially, and I didn't have any interest in like working with kids in particular, because in my mind at that time, never having worked with kids, never having ever spent any real significant amount of time around children, at least not as an adult. In my mind, kids are like annoying and bratty, blah, blah, blah. And then I started working with them, and I was like, actually, they're not so bad all the time. And I started to kind of get into it and enjoy my work, and started, having a little bit of respect for what teachers do, because as a student, when I was a kid, I was a terrible student. I had zero respect for my teachers, but that was just because I was kind of an asshole back then. But so enjoying your profession is another thing. You have to enjoy the work you do, because if I was just miserable at work all the time, like, again, it's like, what's the difference? Like, okay, you're somewhere where, like, what, there's a lot of, like, neon and anime titties plastered on everything, but you're miserable at work, and you're not happy at home either. I don't know if it's really worth it at that point, but luckily for me, I actually started to find enjoyment for my work, and started really, like, kind of attaching myself to some of my students and being more invested in their education and development, and really trying my best to, like, teach them. Like, it became, like, an important thing to me, to the point now where I've been working at this school for over 2 years now, and I've had some kids have been my students all that time. And so I've been able to see kind of like the fruits of my labor, to see them improving in their English and getting more interested in it, and sitting down and being able to now have, like, conversations with them and things like that. And so enjoying my work was sort of a very important thing, because I was afraid I wasn't going to enjoy it, and that I was just going to be doing it so I could just maintain the visa. That way I could do what I really wanted to do, was work more on, YouTube videos, and sort of be like all these other people on YouTube, just going for that brass ring, trying to turn this into money. But luckily that's not how it turned out. I'm in a position now where I enjoy my job. I like working with kids. Some kids are a little difficult for sure, but generally speaking, I don't hate my job at all. Not even a little bit. Not even at all. I enjoy it quite a lot, and I still have a lot of, like, passion for YouTube. I have quite the substantial circle of friends, people I can talk to when I need to. It's a little harder to go hang out recently with things shutting down, constant state of emergency, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I got friends who, like, own bars, and that's usually when I see them, is when I go to the bar. And now that's not an option, because they can't open their business. So hopefully that gets cleared up pretty soon. But all of those things combined are kind of like what's keeping me here, because it's gotten me in a place where, like, I'm happy. Romantic entanglements too are sort of like a big motivator as well, because like I said, I had a few friends, quote unquote, and then a girlfriend recently, although we recently broke up, but it wasn't like one of those bad breakups. Like the other ex, the one I was living with in Kanagawa, that was a bad one. That was one of those ones where, like, you don't really see the true colors of a person's personality until you live with them, and then you're like, holy shit, I gotta get the hell out of here. But you hang in, you try to make it work for like a year, and then after like a year, it's just like, oh, this is not gonna work out, I need to get out of this. This one, it was more of just like, this kind of fizzled out, I think. Maybe it's time to not do this anymore. But having romantic interests, whether that be a girlfriend or a boyfriend or what have you, that's an important thing. Just basically in general, like, again, sort of like to the topic of the video, what's keeping me in Japan isn't just a surface level, like, interest in, like, video games or pop cultural things, because I'm not sure that would be enough for me. It's that interests and being able to enjoy those hobbies and indulge in those interests, but also having a job that I actually like doing, and also enjoying what I do on YouTube and seeing sort of like the potential in that, and having fun with that, and having a social circle, and just generally being, like, emotionally and mentally, like, healthy, because again, like I said, that's not the case for everybody. Some things really turn people off. That guy, like I talked about, the guy from school who left after one semester, I mean, he got his feelings hurt very easily. Luckily for him, he never had to go through the process of, like, finding an apartment, because stuff like that can really take the wind out of yourselves when you're like, hey, this is a nice apartment, I would like to apply to live there if it's free. And they're like, yes, the apartment is empty, but unfortunately you are a foreigner and we don't rent to you, goodbye. That can, that doesn't feel too good. So that probably would have really broken that guy's heart. But anyway, why stay in Japan, again, beyond the surface level? I like video games and anime. That might be enough for some people, wasn't enough for me. I needed those other things. I needed work that I could enjoy and at times look forward to going to. I needed a social circle. I need some ladies in the bedroom on occasion. I need to have fun. I need to have a good time, and that extends beyond just indulging in, a single hobby. I want to have sort of like a well-rounded life where I'm working, and trust me, I do work quite a lot, but I'm not miserable because I'm working, because I grew up knowing lots of people. I grew up in Louisiana. Most of the men I knew worked offshore oil rigs and chemical plants and all this kind of stuff. They worked constantly, and they were miserable alcoholics, and I didn't want to be that. So it's important to me to enjoy my work and enjoy my hobbies and have a social life and to have a romantic life, and to have a comfortable place to live. So work a lot, but as long as you're happy with the work you're doing, then I don't know, not really much to complain about. So those are all the things sort of keeping me here, I guess you could say. So if you thought that the only reason I was staying in Japan because of all my YouTube videos you may have watched is because I just love video games and that's really my only motivation for staying here, no, not at all. That's a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the entire thing. And everyone's motivations are different, everything everything is different from person to person, depending on where you're from, where you grew up, what your proclivities are, your hobbies are, what kind of, social or antisocial you are. Those things are going to change. But for me personally, that's all the, the things keeping me here in Japan. Anyway, I feel like I've really, really been droning on. You probably are not listening anymore. Hey, this could be a fun little thing. Like, if you are listening, what would be something to put in the comments? Put chicken pot pie in the comments, because I haven't had a chicken pot pie, in a dog's age. I haven't had one of those. That's fun, right? Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. If you have any kind of input, like let's say you are maybe interested in relocating to Japan, why? Let me know down in the comments. Is there any motivation beyond just your interest in maybe the pop culture or the culture of Japan in general? Maybe there's something else you're looking forward to. I'd like to know. And if you do live in Japan or have lived here before, what keeps you here? What kept you here? How did you feel about it? How do you feel about it? Tell me all those things down in the comments. I'd like to know. And until next time, thanks for listening, everybody. Take care, and I'll see you then. Goodbye.